"Hey, what's that noise? You call that music?" one of the officers barked, his voice sharp, carrying through the empty evening streets. A second officer snickered behind him, the glow of the patrol car's red and blue lights reflecting off his sunglasses. "Man, you even see the strings, or are you just guessing?" The blind musician, a man in his mid-30s with worn clothes and a guitar that had seen better days, didn't flinch. He sat cross-legged on the cracked sidewalk, a small open case at his feet for coins. The night air was thick with the scent of hot asphalt and distant garbage fires, but he only felt it as part of his environment, tuning into the world through sound. His fingers, callous from years of practice, moved deftly across the guitar strings, producing a low, soulful melody. The tune was haunting, a mixture of blues and jazz, spilling stories of pain, hope, and survival into the quiet city night. "Man, you're blind, right?" the first officer said, leaning casually against a patrol car. "How the hell are you even supposed to know what you're playing?" He laughed, a harsh, hollow sound that bounced off the graffiti-stained walls surrounding the street corner. His partner snorted, holding back a cough of laughter that made it clear they were both enjoying mocking someone they considered beneath them. The musician's head tilted slightly, his fingers pausing mid-strum. He could feel the tension in the air, the oppressive weight of their stares and laughter. He had encountered ridicule before. His blindness and skin color often made him an easy target. But this was different. These were men with badges, trained and armed, laughing at him as if he were a street performer on some inferior stage for their amusement. Yet, despite their mockery, he breathed slowly, letting the music flow from his hands. His guitar didn't judge. It didn't mock. It simply carried his story forward. "Man, maybe you should just pack it up," the first officer continued, smirking. "I mean, no one's going to pay you for that noise." His partner took a step closer, trying to intimidate, letting the light from the patrol car fall directly across the musician's face. "You're just sitting here, pretending to play music. Pathetic." The musician didn't answer. Instead, he resumed his strumming, his melody now tinged with a quiet defiance. Each chord he struck was deliberate, each note carrying the weight of decades of struggle. He had grown up navigating the world without sight, learning to read people by tone, to measure the city by echoes, and to survive by listening. Music was his language, his refuge, his weapon against a world that had too often treated him as invisible. The officers laughed again, louder this time. "Man, I don't know how you're doing this," one said. "You blind black, and out here playing like some street clown. What are people even supposed to think?" A few pedestrians walking down the block slowed, glancing at the scene. Some shook their heads, uncomfortable, but most hurried past, unwilling to confront the audacity of uniformed officers laughing at a blind man for simply living. The musician knew they were watching. He could feel the judgment in the air, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. His guitar was an extension of him, and to put it down now would be surrendering not just to them, but to every moment in life that had tried to break him. "Yo, you know what? Maybe I should just teach you a lesson," the first officer said, his voice suddenly harder. He took a step closer, and the street lights glinted off the metal of his belt, where his weapon rested. "Let's see how funny your music is when you're on the ground, huh?" The musician froze for a brief moment, the sound of a nearby car horn blending with the pounding of his heart. He had faced danger before, in dark alleys and tense confrontations, but the badge had always carried authority, and authority demanded fear. Yet, fear didn't stop him from acting. Calmly, he set his guitar across his lap, not lowering it, not letting it go. "You can laugh all you want," he said quietly, his voice steady but carrying an undeniable strength. "But I'm not afraid of you." The officers blinked, surprised. No one spoke to them like that, not without trembling or stuttering. The musician's words were like a ripple through the tension, a subtle challenge they hadn't anticipated. "You don't know who you're talking to," one officer muttered, the laughter now replaced with a cautious edge. "I know exactly who I am," the musician replied. "And who you are. You're laughing at someone because you think it makes you powerful. But real power, real strength doesn't come from a badge or a laugh. It comes from surviving, from living honestly, and from not letting the world make you small." For a moment, Silence fell over the street. The music had stopped, leaving only the echo of the last chord hanging in the night air. The officers shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what to do. People on the sidewalk paused to watch, some stepping closer, sensing the tension. The musician's gaze, though he could not see, was focused and unwavering, as if he could measure their hesitation by their breaths. The first officer cleared his throat. "Man, we're just messing with you. You don't gotta get all preachy." "Messing with me?" the musician said, his voice low but firm. "This isn't a joke. My life, my music, my struggles, they're real. You laughing doesn't change that. You just show everyone what kind of people you are." There was a long pause. The second officer looked down at his shoes, uneasy. The first officer's smirk faltered, replaced by a mixture of irritation and confusion. They had expected a scared, cowering figure, someone who would beg for mercy or flee. Instead, they were confronted with courage, quiet, controlled, undeniable courage that made them feel suddenly small. "You better keep moving," the first officer finally said, his tone clipped. He glanced at his partner, who nodded, both now aware that their amusement had gone too far. The patrol car's engine hummed quietly as they prepared to leave, the red and blue lights fading slightly, leaving the street in the dim glow of the lamplights. The musician exhaled slowly, lifting his guitar back into position. He strummed a soft, reflective chord, letting the tension melt into the music. His melody carried a story now of confrontation and survival, of the courage it took to face ridicule without flinching. Each note resonated through the empty street, claiming his space, reclaiming his dignity, and reminding everyone within earshot that music and humanity can never be silenced by laughter. Hours later, the city settled into its quiet rhythm. Trash cans rattled in the distant wind, and the hum of faraway traffic filled the air. But on that small, cracked corner, under the shadow of brick buildings and flickering streetlights, a black, blind musician sat with his guitar, his song still alive, unbroken. And somewhere in a fading distance, two officers drove away, carried with them a lesson they hadn't asked for and would not easily forget. That strength is not measured by laughter or intimidation, but by resilience, courage, and a refusal to be diminished. The musician didn't care about the officers anymore. His fingers traced the strings, his song continuing late into the night. For every laugh thrown at him, a chord rang louder, richer, and stronger. And in that simple act of playing, he was victorious. The next day, the streets felt calmer, almost unaware of the tension from the night before. The black blind musician returned to his usual corner, guitar in hand, his case open for coins. The city was waking up, but the echo of yesterday's encounter lingered in his mind. He didn't dwell on it, he never had, but he felt the quiet satisfaction of having faced ridicule without surrendering. As he began strumming, a small crowd started to gather. People passing by paused, drawn in by the soulful chords of his guitar. The music wasn't just notes. It was a story of survival, resilience, and defiance. Each strum seemed to say, "I am here. I am not broken." Across the street, the same officers from the night before appeared. Their patrol car idled silently, red and blue lights off. Their expressions a mix of unease and curiosity. The laughter from yesterday was gone. Now, they simply watched as the musician's fingers danced across the strings, producing melodies that were rich, haunting, and full of emotion. The street, once a stage for mockery, had transformed into a place of admiration. Pedestrians stopped. Some dropped coins into his open case, whispering words of encouragement. Others simply listened, captivated by the raw honesty of his performance. Even the officers couldn't ignore it. One muttered under his breath, "He's really good." The other nodded silently, a flicker of respect crossing his face. The musician continued to play, unaware of the subtle shift around him. He didn't need approval, only expression. His music reached people in a way words never could. It told the story of his blindness, his struggles, and his unyielding spirit. In that moment, no one saw him as weak or pitiable. They saw him as strong, determined, and dignified. As the day went on, the crowd grew. Street vendors paused their work. Commuters slowed their steps, and even tourists stopped to listen. The officers eventually drove away, leaving the musician to his music. But the encounter had changed them. For the first time, they saw him not as a target of ridicule, but as a person whose courage could not be shaken. By evening, the street corner had transformed. The musician's guitar sang stories of triumph over scorn, and every note reminded the city that strength is measured not by who can shout the loudest, but by who can remain unbroken in the face of cruelty. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There are countless stories of resilience, courage, and triumph waiting to be heard, and your support helps bring these voices into the light. Every play, every share, and every subscriber helps spread awareness that real strength often comes quietly through actions and courage that speak louder than words.